In Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, there is a garden bed that has not been tilled in more than 40 years. No machine has turned its soil since the 1980s, and no herbicide has ever touched it. The soil is dark, loose, and nearly free of weeds. 300 miles east, gardeners across the country spend every spring fighting the same crabgrass, thistle, and dandelions, and losing. The global herbicide market is worth more than $34 billion a year, and it grows by about 5% annually. The families who tend that untilled bed spend nothing on any of it. What they use instead is a system, and soil science has only recently caught up to it. Tens of thousands of growers in Amish country produce food year after year without buying commercial weed killer. The method is neither exotic nor expensive. They call it no-till forever. It rests on 5 practices, and each one has now been studied by an agricultural university or a federal research lab. Here is what each practice does, why it works, and how to copy it this season. The first practice is the one that sounds like a mistake. They never till. In most gardens, every spring the rototiller comes out and churns the soil until it looks dark and clean. Research from Michigan State University found that a single square foot of garden soil holds between 56 and nearly 15,000 viable weed seeds. Those seeds are patient. A single lamb squirter's plant can produce more than 72,000 seeds in one season, and many stay alive underground for 10 or 20 years. Velvet leaf seeds have germinated after decades in total darkness. What they need to wake up is moisture and a brief flash of sunlight. A spinning tiller blade gives them both. Every pass lifts buried seeds to the surface and triggers the next generation of weeds. Left undisturbed, those seeds would have stayed dormant for years. The tiller is what drags them up into the light. The damage runs deeper than the seeds. Soil biologist Dr. Elaine Ingham spent years mapping what she calls the soil food web, the network of bacteria, fungi, and microorganisms that keep soil alive. The most important threads in that network are fungi called arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi. They attach to plant roots and pull water and minerals from far deeper than the roots can reach on their own. They also produce a natural glue called glomalin that binds loose soil into soft, aerated clumps. A rototiller cuts straight through all of it. Destroy the fungi and you destroy the glomalin, and by midsummer, the bed that looked perfect in April bakes into hard, cracked clay that sheds water like pavement. So, the Amish leave the bed completely alone. The buried seeds stay in the dark, where they cannot sprout. The fungal network rebuilds, and the soil holds itself together. That handles the weeds below the surface, but not the ones already growing on top. The second practice copies the floor of a forest. The ground under undisturbed trees is never bare. Fallen leaves, bark, and broken twigs form one continuous blanket that smothers seedlings, feeds the life underneath, and traps moisture. The Amish recreate that forest blanket with plain corrugated cardboard. The process is short. Cut the existing weeds and grass as low as possible, with no need to pull anything out. Then soak the area with water, which wakes the soil, biology, and draws earthworms toward the surface. Next, lay sheets of plain brown cardboard flat across the bed with any tape, stickers, or glossy print removed first. The one detail that decides success is the overlap. Each sheet has to overlap the next by at least 4 to 6 inches, because even a hairline gap of light is enough for a weed to find and push through within days. Cardboard does 2 things that plastic landscape fabric never can. It is completely opaque, so it blocks all of the sunlight reaching the soil and shuts down the seed bank below. And as the cardboard sits in the dark and damp, it turns into food for earthworms. They tunnel through the compacted ground, aerate it for free, and leave castings that rank among the richest natural fertilizers available. Over 4 to 6 months, the cardboard breaks down completely and disappears into the earth. Plastic fabric does the opposite. It stays for years, smothers the soil beneath it, and tears into strips that must be pulled out by hand. On top go 2 to 4 inches of compost, then a layer of straw, shredded leaves, or wood chips. Soil scientist Dr. Christine Jones has shown that this layered organic cover protects soil life through both drought and heavy rain. And planting does not have to wait. Cut a small X through the cardboard, fold back the flaps, set a transplant into the soil, and fold the cardboard back around the stem. The surface is handled now. What happens inside the planting hole is a separate problem, and it is where good gardens quietly stall. The third practice fixes a problem that stays invisible. A plant can get steady water and generous compost and still refuse to grow. The leaves stay pale, the fruit stays small, and the gardener has no idea why. Often the nutrients are already in the soil, but they are chemically locked because the soil pH is out of balance. The food is in the pantry, and the cabinet is locked. Many Amish growers solve this with 2 things that cost nothing: used coffee grounds and wood ash. Coffee grounds add nitrogen, attract earthworms, and feed soil microbes, but heavy repeated use slowly pushes the soil toward the acidic side, which locks up calcium and phosphorus. The counterweight comes from the fireplace. It has to be ash from clean, untreated hardwood, never charcoal briquettes, painted wood, or pressure-treated lumber, which carry chemicals that have no place near food. Pure hardwood ash is concentrated potassium, calcium, and magnesium, the minerals tomatoes and peppers use to build strong stems and heavy fruit. This is where the wood ash usually backfires. The instinct is to toss dry ash straight into the hole with the coffee grounds. But wood ash is strongly alkaline. When dry ash meets the nitrogen in the coffee grounds, it turns that nitrogen into ammonia gas, which escapes into the air before the plant can use it, and the sudden spike in pH can scorch young roots. The fix is to turn the ash into a liquid first. 2 tablespoons of hardwood ash stirred into 1 liter of water and left overnight dissolves into a cloudy, milky extract, still potent but safely diluted. At planting, a handful of coffee grounds goes into the bottom of the hole, and a 1/4 cup of the milky ash water is poured over the top. The alkaline minerals neutralize the acid slowly and evenly with no spike, and the pH settles into the range where nutrients unlock. Dr. Jerry Hatfield, former director of the United States Department of Agriculture's National Laboratory for Agriculture and the Environment, spent decades studying soil chemistry. His work confirmed that when soil chemistry is balanced, a plant's own defenses against pests and disease work better than any spray applied from the outside. Growers who prepare the hole this way report deeper green leaves and stronger growth within 3 weeks. That takes care of the soil and the plant. The harder problem is the months when the bed sits empty. The fourth practice uses a plant that makes its own weed killer. At the end of the summer harvest, experienced growers never leave soil bare, because bare ground is an invitation that weeds rush to cover. So, instead of empty beds, they scatter seed for a cover crop called cereal rye. Researchers at Cornell University and Penn State University have documented what happens next. As the cereal rye grows, even through freezing winter, it produces compounds called benzoxazinones in its roots and leaves. When the rye residue decomposes in early spring, those compounds release directly into the surrounding soil. University studies show that cereal rye residue can suppress the germination of pigweed, Crabgrass and lamb's quarters by up to 95% for 30 to 60 days. That is near total suppression from the plant's own chemistry, with nothing applied from a bottle. The spring step is simple. About 3 to 4 weeks before planting, the rye is cut at ground level and left lying flat across the soil like a thick golden mat. There is no tilling, so the fungal network underneath stays intact. That flat rye mat now does 3 jobs. It blocks sunlight from reaching the weed seeds beneath it. It cuts evaporation and holds up to 30% more moisture in the soil. And it keeps releasing its weed-suppressing chemistry as it breaks down. Spring transplants go straight through small openings cut into the mat. Cereal rye seed sells at most farm supply stores for a few dollars a pound. A light scattering 4 to 6 weeks before the first hard frost is all it takes. It grows through winter with no care, suppresses weeds through spring, and feeds the soil as it breaks down. One fall planting replaces months of weeding the next year. Cereal rye protects the whole bed at once, but the weed seeds still sitting on the surface need a different answer. The 5th practice is a trap. Delicate crops grown from seed, like carrots, beets, lettuce, and radishes, are far too small in their first weeks to compete with weeds for light and water. So the gardener prepares the bed exactly as if it were planting day, raked smooth and watered deeply, then plants nothing. Within a week to 10 days, thousands of weed seeds near the surface sense the light and moisture and sprout, sending up tiny green threads. That is the exact moment the HOE comes out. While the seedlings are still barely visible, with almost no roots, a sharp HOE scrapes lightly across the top half-inch of soil and wipes out the entire generation in 5 minutes. The timing is everything. Caught this early, the seedlings come out with almost no effort. The scraping also has to stay shallow, because cutting deep just drags up more buried seeds and starts the cycle over again. Repeating this twice before planting can cut weed emergence in that bed by 50 to 70% for the rest of the season. For the open ground between tall crops like corn, tomatoes, and pole beans, the Amish add a living cover of white Dutch clover, sown between the rows. The low clover forms a dense carpet that crowds weeds out of any bare soil. It pulls nitrogen out of the air and feeds it to neighboring crops through bacteria in its root nodules. And its white blossoms draw pollinating insects that raise the fruit set on nearby tomatoes, squash, and peppers. But the most useful work happens after dark. A study from Cornell University found that ground beetles, small nocturnal predators that shelter in cover crops and mulch, come out at night and eat up to 65% of the weed seeds on the soil surface. While the gardener sleeps, the beetles eat next year's weeds before they can germinate. Put all 5 practices together, and gardening stops being a fight. The tiller stays in the shed. Cardboard and compost rebuild the surface. Coffee grounds and wood ash balance the soil. And cover crops hold the ground through the empty seasons while earthworms and beetles do the labor underground. Every step works with the soil biology that is already there instead of against it. And every one is free. There is no equipment to buy and no yearly trip to the chemical aisle. That is why the bed in Lancaster County still grows food after 40 years with no tiller and no sprayer. The soil there was not rebuilt with money. It was rebuilt by leaving it alone and feeding the life that was already in it. If you are planning your own beds this spring, start with the first practice because it costs the least of all. Leave the tiller in the shed. If you have tried any of this, the comments are open, and if you found this video useful, please like and subscribe.